If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher, and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this episode. And today we are going to be talking all about thyroids, because thyroids are such an important part of health, fertility, menstrual cycles. And I am joined by Farzanah today, who is a thyroid health expert and nutritionist, functional medicine practitioner, and also has a real interest in gut health. And so we have been following each other for quite some time on good old Instagram. And I've always been really, really impressed by your work and what you do and the information that you put out there. I love your recipes. I've used them a lot myself. And
Amazing.
I just know that in clinic, we get lots and lots of questions about thyroid support. So thank you very much for coming on and speaking with us today. And I would love to hear a little bit, for you to introduce yourself and to say how you got into this. Because did I read rightly that you used to be in banking?
Yes, I thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Yes, I used to be in banking, and by the time I was mid-20s, I was diagnosed with a couple of autoimmune conditions. I had PCOS. I was on the road to burnout, and I just didn't understand what was going on. And I didn't understand my body, and it was just me trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together that led me back to school and retraining as a nutritional therapist, and then a certified functional medicine practitioner, so I could sort my own health out. But then now I have the tools to help other people with the same issues, which is amazing.
Can you tell us, because I often get a bit confused in this, what's the difference between nutrition and functional medicine?
Well, they're very much this. It's the way we use them. So with functional medicine, it's always about getting to the root cause. Okay, so with regular medicine, you have like a medication for a problem, and that helps, right? But you're not actually resolving it from the root cause. Like, why did that problem happen? So with functional medicine, you're always looking at the root cause. Okay, so nutritional therapy does use functional medicine. So, being trained as a nutritional therapist, I was trained in functional medicine, and our main, we're using food as medicine. So, supporting diet, which is so foundational, right? In helping to get to the root cause, changing what we're eating. That's one piece of the puzzle, looking at stress, looking at your nervous system, your lifestyle, all those things are other pieces. But I would predominantly use like food to support someone, and it's a big part of that. So to guide someone, in addition to looking at the root cause.
That's interesting, because in China, I used to be an English teacher, and I lived in China for quite a few years. And in China, the word for food is actually medicine as well. It's the same, because there's a real link between this idea of what you put into your body really informs how your health is. And it's really bizarre, given that lived in China for years, wasn't an acupuncturist, didn't discover acupuncture. But when I trained as an acupuncturist, so many things that people used to say to me really made sense about this idea of eating in a certain way, eating at certain times, eating with the seasons, and it all kind of came together. And I think this idea of food as medicine is absolutely a brilliant and really important, because I think sometimes we forget.
No, absolutely. I mean, every single piece of our body, every cell is made out of the food that we eat. So it has to have an importance. So food can be medicine, or it can be this. I can't remember who said this, or it can be the slowest form of poison, depending on what you choose to eat, because you are made of it, your food choices.
Absolutely. So tell us about thyroid health, and tell us about thyroid health, and what is the role of the thyroid? Maybe let's start there, the role of the thyroid and why it's so important.
Thyroid health is super important. Your thyroid hormones help regulate your metabolism. Okay. It's the speed at which everything works in our body. We have a thyroid receptor on every single one of our cells. It's the only receptor we have. It's the only thing we have a receptor for in every single one of our cells. So we have it for thyroid and we have it for vitamin D,
Mm.
because that's how important it is. And so, when someone has hypothyroid, the symptoms could be absolutely anything. So we know it has to do with things like low energy, fatigue, hair loss, infertility, all these things, but it's a slowing down, and it could be absolutely anything, any kind of symptom, because, you have a thyroid receptor on every single cell, and it's a
Okay.
slowing. Yeah,
It can impact in many, many different ways, given that it's on every single cell of the body.
absolutely. Exactly.
And so tell us what is the link between thyroid and menstrual cycles and thyroids and fertility? Is it the same thing in that because it's in every cell, therefore it influences that as well?
Yeah, thyroid hormone helps regulate your menstrual cycle too. And if you don't have optimal levels of thyroid hormone, it can affect your menstrual cycle. It can cause, a cycle where you don't ovulate. And then if you don't ovulate, that's going to affect your fertility as well. It can also affect the luteal phase of your cycle too. And you might not produce enough progesterone. That's going to affect your fertility as well. So, it's a huge piece of the puzzle, and it's really, really important when you're thinking about fertility.
Yeah, and so what are the common signs? So there's two different. Am I right? I mean, I am hyperthyroid, so you think I would know, and I do know, I do understand a lot about it. But can you tell us the difference between hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism?
Yeah, so hypo is a slowing down. Okay, hyper is a speeding up. Okay, so um, with hyper, you're going to get more of everything, right? So if you might get slow and tired with hyper, you'll get, you have a lot of energy, you'll be very fidgety. You've got, like you have a lot of, you want to do things, right? You might have a faster heart rate, all of those things. But I think also when we talk about hypo and hyper, it's really important as well to differentiate between like the autoimmune component of both of those. So with hypothyroidism, we know that up to 90%, that's a huge percentage, is actually due to an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's disease. Okay. And with hyper, it can be hyper, or it can actually be an autoimmune condition called Graves. So, whatever, it's really, really important to, once you get your levels checked with your GP, to then further investigate further to actually make sure neither of these things are going on.
And
Or
how,
if they are.
and is this to identify that it's an autoimmune? Is that where you look at the thyroid antibodies? Is that where you do that full thyroid panel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you would do, yeah. Sorry, you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because the thing is that often what's tested when you measure a thyroid, sort of what we see a lot of in clinic, is people who've got a TSH, so thyroid stimulating hormone results. And often that is the only measure that people have had done to assess their thyroid health. And from my understanding is that's not enough detail to make a proper assessment.
No, it's not enough detail to make a proper assessment, but there is a huge importance over like TSH as well, and making sure that is within a certain limit to support fertility. So we know we want it below 2.5, and the ranges are much wider otherwise. But seeing the TSH is hugely important, right? Because it's, you have a receptor for it everywhere. If it's not corrected, it's going to have an impact, right? With fertility too. But you want to do a full thyroid panel. So TSH, T4, T3, and then your antibodies, TPO and thyroglobulin as well. So, and if you are positive for like TPO antibodies or thyroglobulin antibodies, then that would be suggestive of Hashimoto's. And then that actually isn't a thyroid issue, that is then an immune system issue.
Yeah. And that is then, am I right in thinking that that then can be linked to increased risk for miscarriage or implantation problems, from a fertility perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you can, with fertility, especially, we're thinking about the TSH,
Yeah.
right? So you definitely, if there are antibodies there, you definitely want to investigate and see what is driving that. And we know antibodies can be triggered by a lot of different things. We know stress can trigger antibodies. Imbalanced blood sugar can trigger antibodies. Nutrient deficiencies, gut infections. There's so many things. So it's really about taking a 360-degree view of what is going on in that person's life and what is like triggering the immune system. So with Hashimoto's, it's an immune system issue, and it's the immune system that is then attacking the thyroid gland. And then as it has destroyed some of the thyroid gland and you're not producing enough TSH, you start to notice that it starts to go up. And so what you want to do is you want to take your thyroid hormone to correct that, which is so important. But at the same time, you also want to look at, why did this happen? What is going on with my immune system, so that you can correct it and you can prevent, it getting worse, essentially.
And so for Hashimoto's, lots of people do take thyroxine for their levels. But so what you're saying is that in addition to that, they need to be looking at the wider kind of background of why did that start in the first place, and why have you got this autoimmune condition?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because
Yeah,
what will happen is that taking thyroid medication is essential, right?
yeah,
You have to take it, but you haven't addressed the root cause, which is, why has that happened in the first place? So if you don't address the root cause, what will happen over time? Your immune system might be calm, but otherwise, whatever's going on, the attack against your thyroid is still happening. Right? So
yeah,
it's still going on. You're replacing the missing thyroid hormone from lack of some of your thyroid, but the attack is still going on. And then you can keep just, losing more and more of your thyroid. As that happens, you'll find that your medication goes up and up and up.
yeah,
And that's what you want to prevent. You want
yeah,
to, safeguard as much as your thyroid as you can, but also by getting to the root cause and finding out what's driving this, we're also preventing other future issues from happening. Because once you have one autoimmune condition, you can have another.
yeah.
Right.
It's
And so,
interesting, isn't it? And so, what about this idea that we have lots of people in clinic who come to us and their thyroid is, let's say, it's like 3.8, it's at 4, and we know that there is the NHS range. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 0.5 to 4.2?
it varies from where you go. Like, I see the
Okay.
range is different. Like, when I get people's bloods back from their GP, some of them have slightly wider ranges. I mean, I still see them up to 7 in some
Oh,
places.
wow.
Yes,
Okay.
and some like 4.5, but like it really varies on where people are going, their own like clinic. I mean, even some of the places that, the private labs that will test, antibodies, their ranges are also 4.2 as well.
So when people are on that borderline, so we've had it many, many times, people come back, let's say their thyroid is at 3.8. In fact, I have somebody at the moment their thyroid has come back at 3.8, and they have gone back to their GP. So they've done a Medi-check, say, because, they couldn't get a test done at the doctor. So they've gone to their GP, and the GP has said, well, you're within the range and we're not doing it. We won't do anything about it. Like, what can that person do in that situation? So that, if they're trying to conceive and they know that it's important for it to be lower, what can that person do?
I mean, we know for fertility, we need it 2.5 and lower. So, you want to try to speak to the GP and see if they would trial them on it. I mean, there's other things you could try to do. We can take nutraceuticals that give you the nutrients that can help the thyroid. We can look at, the breakdown of what's going on to help support thyroid conversion as well. But we really do want them on some thyroid replacement,
Yeah,
especially when you're thinking about fertility. Otherwise, it's really hard. And then what I usually suggest is, let's ask the GP, if they can trial you on it, see what happens, and then we can work on things. We can improve digestion, absorption, inflammation, and we can work on all those areas. But you need to be, you can't even heal, right? So, like, if you don't have correct thyroid hormone, you're going to keep having a leaky gut. You can't heal unless your thyroid hormone is correct. So it's so important to get on it. And then if you need to, come off it, then that's okay. But you need to be on it to heal and to get that work done. So yeah, no, just encouraging the GP or asking them to trial.
and why is that figure at 2.5? Do you know why? The range is, the general range is to 4.2 or whatever it is, for fertility it's below 2.5. Is it just that the research supports it, or is it anything particular about that number?
No, we all should be 2.5 or less.
Okay, right,
It's not just for fertility, but for
right.
fertility, if you're not at that level, it's going to be, it makes it really hard, but we should all be 2.5 or less.
Okay,
all of
that's really
us.
interesting. So why is the scale to 4.2 or whatever it is?
It's an unhealthy population that they use. It's not a healthy population that's used when they do, when they do these ranges. I mean, it's come down quite a lot. So it used to be much higher. And so it's slowly creeping lower and lower, but we know the optimal range is up to 2.5.
Right.
And so with functional testing, so I use Medichecks a lot and they're great, but they are 4.2, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
they
it's
are,
a
yeah.
wider range. But if you do it, say, with a functional lag like Genova, it's 2.5.
Okay.
But
Okay, okay, that's really interesting because I always assumed that for some reason the 2.5 was specifically for fertility, but it's actually for everybody
it's for
in an ideal
absolutely
world.
everyone. Yeah, yeah, absolutely everyone. But yeah, I think this is just like the NHS guidelines that a lot of people will use,
Yeah.
which is that. But it's for everyone. We all need to be
And
at that
what
level.
is it specifically about fertility that, so let's say your thyroid is at 4. What is it about that thyroid being at 4 that is impacting your fertility? Is there anything specific, or is it its impact on the menstrual cycle?
Yeah, it slows everything down.
Yeah.
Even when you try to get pregnant, you need thyroid hormone for all these things. If it's not there, it makes it really challenging for the body, and it's not able to, it can't do these processes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you mentioned the luteal phase, because the luteal phase is something that comes up a lot in clinic and in our community where people really want, they often have like spotting in their luteal phase, or they have a short luteal phase and they're really trying to optimize a luteal phase. So I guess what a really important sort of baseline to check is that your thyroid is at this 2.5 and below, because that's going to support that progesterone production and that luteal
Absolutely.
phase.
Absolutely, but you can't like ignore like the whole stress component of it too. So like
Yeah.
when we're talking about our sex hormones and our thyroid hormones, they all sit on top of your adrenal glands. So if you think of your hormones as a pyramid,
Yeah.
okay, and at the bottom you've got your adrenal glands,
Mm.
then you've got your thyroid hormones, and then you've got your sex hormones. If that base of that hormone pyramid is not stable, it's going to affect all the hormones above it, right? So supporting stress is so important. So, working on stress management, making sure you're blood sugar balancing your meals. If you're not blood sugar balancing your meals, those fluctuations in blood sugar throughout the day will destabilize that foundation too, because it means your adrenal glands have to pump out cortisol when, your blood sugars drop. So like, and there was a really interesting study that was done, and it was with people with hypothyroidism. And they didn't support the thyroid gland, but they supported the adrenals. And I think the study was done with ashwagandha, having ashwagandha daily. And they found that the TSH improved because of that, not because of the thyroid support, but because of the adrenal support.
Mm.
So that's
Interesting.
really important to think about and look at as well.
Mm. And I always think, in terms of acupuncture and where acupuncture fits in this picture, I think what we're really good at is switching off that stress response, of
Yeah.
reducing the adrenaline, the cortisol in the body, providing that support. I kind of feel like that's where we sort of fit in for a lot of this picture. And I think that's probably why it's so popular to use alongside fertility, because
Yeah.
it's that having some control, having something to do, being able to kind of actually go somewhere and get into a relaxed rest and digest state that I think is really beneficial.
It's so important. Like if you're not in that state, it will have a knock-on domino effect on everything, right? Our digestion, our hormones, our nervous system is such an important piece of the puzzle.
And what about the link to gut health and thyroid? Because that is really interesting.
Yeah, no, the gut is really, really important, and like on a lot of different levels. So, first of all, the gut is where you digest and you absorb the food that you're eating. So, if there's infections, if you're not digesting your food correctly, you're not going to be able to extract the nutrients that you need to support thyroid health, right? And so, like, even if you're rushing around and you're stressed the whole time, if you sit down and you're not actually eating correctly, that doesn't allow your stomach to start producing enzymes to help break down the food. So for example, if you're walking around the kitchen, your blood is flowing to your legs, to your arms, to your muscles. And then if you're eating, it's not flowing to your stomach, and your stomach, you need blood flow to your stomach to allow for digestion. You know, you need to look, you need to smell your food. Like, how many times have you smelt your food or thought of your food and you salivate? That saliva helps you break down your food. It triggers other digestive enzymes in your stomach. All really important to breaking down your food to extract the nutrients that you need. For thyroid health, if you think about the autoimmune component, um, we know that gut infections, they're like a huge driver of like hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So, H. pylori is one that, infection that sits in the gut. Things like SIBO, Candida, parasites, imbalanced bacteria, they can all, affect your gut. And also imbalances in your gut microbiome can release inflammatory cytokines, so inflammation, that can get into your bloodstream, and that can cause, a lot of inflammation. Actually, the beginning of your gut is your mouth. And what's really interesting, the state of your mouth, your oral microbiome affects placental health. So there are studies that have linked, your mouth, which is your beginning of your GI tract, to placental health. So like this whole, your whole gut is really, really, really important. But there's so much we can do. So like I say, okay, it could be this, it could be that, but there's so much you can do to help support your gut, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism. There's so much you can do. Mindful eating, being present when you sit down, being present, smell your food, chew your food at least 25 times, right? Your stomach doesn't have teeth. Um, try to get lots of color in, try to get fiber in, you know, the more fiber that we eat, we know. So there was a study that was done and it showed that the magic number was 30 different plant foods a week to help support your gut and your microbiome. So, getting in that fiber from a variety of different sources helps to feed the good microbes in the gut. And then as you feed them, it lowers the pH and you crowd out a lot of the problematic microbes that way as well. And it makes it favorable for the, like the good microbes. So, you know, I say, yeah, there can be issues, but there's so much that we can do as well to improve and support our gut health as well.
Yeah, and it never fails to amaze me how many people come to clinic with hormonal issues or menstrual cycle issues and gut issues. That the two go so hand in hand.
Yeah.
And we always say to work with a nutritionist to get that specialized support, because it's very difficult to treat hormonal health if you've got gut issues going on as well in the background.
Absolutely. I mean, even with my clients, when they come to see me with hormonal issues, I won't even do something like the Dutch test until I've done a stool test and I've worked on the gut, because I'm like, it's no point doing them together, because once you sort the gut out, it really has such a significant effect on what's happening on your hormones. So you look at the gut, you look at the liver, you support them, and then do a Dutch test, because the results are completely different once you've done all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, the links, isn't it? And it's really
Yeah.
frustrating, I think, because I think so many people just really struggle to get proper testing and proper support and advice around their thyroid. So there's just always seems to be just a real kind of lack of information from GPs and people really, really struggling. So, I mean, we always say do Medichecks, and it sounds like you do Medichecks too.
It's great. Medichecks is brilliant because it's easy. It's at home. I mean, it takes a while to get the blood out because it's like a finger prick, but it's so convenient. It's cost effective, and you can just do it from home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do love it. Yeah,
And they do a full thyroid panel, don't they? They do the full profile. So it's a
exactly.
really good way to sort of explore it further if you're having troubles from your GP. And if I think somebody asked the question of what would you in terms of if somebody can't get thyroxine, levothyroxine to support their TSH from their doctor, what other routes do you have? Any other routes that they could try?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of other routes. You could get like glandulars, but you need to be working, you want to work with someone to help guide you. They are private doctors as well. So there is a clinic called Roseway Clinic, and they're a private clinic. So you show them and they're quite cost effective. So you show them your thyroid results, and then they book you with a 20-minute appointment with one of their functional doctors, and then they can help and suggest options for you too. So A private doctor or Roseway are brilliant.
Oh,
And
okay,
then,
that's
yeah, you
really
just have to,
helpful.
you just have to show them your results and then they can prescribe.
Yeah. And in your experience, can people ever stop taking levothyroxine?
It really depends.
Mm.
It's just, it really, everyone is so, so different. So some people can, so if you've caught it quite early, so the nicest, like, if we're talking from a Hashimoto's perspective, if you've caught it quite early, um, you can definitely prevent it from getting worse. So that's, I think it's always trying to prevent it from getting worse. And sometimes you do have to stay on your medication because you have lost some of your thyroid gland. And so you're not going to get that back. So you need to stay on the medication. But sometimes as you improve things, as you improve stress, as you get rid of the infections, you definitely see the dose you need coming down with a lot of people. And sometimes there's been some people I've worked with have been able to come off it and they've gone to like a herbal tincture more to support the adrenals and stuff like that. Sometimes you can't. But then you'd hope that the dose wouldn't go up because you've at least looked at what the trigger was and resolved that. But it's a very individual, it depends on each person, what's going on, how long it's been going on for, what the drivers are,
Yeah.
but definitely prevent it from getting worse.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I've been on levothyroxine for 18 years and I've never changed my dosage in 18 years. And to be honest, my thyroid has never, I'm touch wood, my thyroid has never given me any problems, but I'm
Good.
really interested and I'm really aware of it at the moment just because of being perimenopausal, what impact that will
Yes.
have. So I am going to start investigating it myself just to check because it's not bothered me in any way, shape or form. That doesn't mean there's not something lurking in the background. So I'm definitely on it at the moment. In
Yeah.
terms of thyroid and the links with miscarriage, can you say a little bit about that? Do you know anything that, in terms of the
Yeah. Well,
ranges or the links?
when you get pregnant, you need more thyroid hormone. So you're now creating, another being. You need more thyroid hormone. And as soon as you're pregnant, you need to see your GP because they will up your dosage. And if you don't up your dosage and you don't have enough thyroid hormone, that can result in miscarriage.
Mm. So
So
it's always
really,
it needs to be checked all the time, doesn't
a
it? And
100%. If you're hyperthyroidism, if you're Hashimoto's, the second you get pregnant, you need to see your GP. They need to do bloods. They need to, double your dose, but you need a lot more thyroid hormone and they need to stay like on top of that. And it needs to stay at that same range for the whole first trimester and they need to monitor it.
yeah.
But you do need more thyroid hormone once you're pregnant.
And in terms of sort of general lifestyle advice, I guess like so as you say, addressing stress is a really important one for supporting your thyroid. Would you say that's like your number one?
Yeah, it is because your adrenals are the base of your hormonal
Yeah.
pyramid. And a lot of studies suggest that as well. Stress is so, I mean, if you're stressed out, if you've got a lot of, I mean, we all have stress, right?
Yeah.
There's like no getting away from stress, but it's building up, resilience, knowing how to be able to handle things when things are going wrong, because stress is not only going to affect, the hormones above it, it's going to affect your gut, it's going to affect absorption, it's going to put you in a sympathetic, you can't even, it's hard to conceive when you're stressed and you're in a sympathetic mode. So really, really important. But, there's so many other things that are important too. Sleep, your
Yeah.
body recovers when you sleep, getting a nutrient dense diet, a diet that you get all the nutrients that you need for your thyroid as well. Making sure your plate is blood sugar balanced. So you have protein, fat, carbs, fiber. So we know that imbalanced blood sugars, that can be a trigger for Hashimoto's,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's all really important as well.
Yeah. And in terms of from a sort of dietary, so I mean, we always say to people, don't just start taking selenium because they always say selenium for thyroid health, to kind of go and work with somebody properly to get a proper investigation because it might be that what's right for you is not right for somebody else.
Yes, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, selenium's great because it's used for thyroid conversion. So it helps convert T4 to T3. It's also
Yeah.
needed for antioxidant status. So that can help with the thyroid too. And actually, studies have shown that 200 micrograms of selenium can bring down TPO antibodies. So it's got so many benefits, but like the magic number is like 200 micrograms and you usually use it over 3 months. But like you say, always good to see what's going on because there might be something that's better for you. But also including selenium through foods. And when we talk about getting, 30 different plant foods a week and a variety, when you do that, you hit those, like, those minerals and those nutrients that you need, right? So it's not about focusing on one thing either. I'm going to get my Brazil nuts in or whatever it is. It's about actually getting a variety of different plants, and you get what you need that way as well.
Yeah. That's really, really helpful. Somebody's asked about thyroid linked to low estrogen levels? If your thyroid is out, would that be impacting your estrogen levels?
Well, it can absolutely affect all of your, like, think about the pyramid, right?
Yeah.
You got your
Yes.
adrenals, your thyroid, your sex hormones atop. They do depend on good adrenal and good thyroid health. So
Yeah.
yes.
So there can be a link there.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and am I right? Have you got a course? Have you got something? You've released a new course recently. Is that is that for gut health specifically, or has that got a thyroid element to it as well?
So it's called Health Unlocked, and it's the 4 foundations to health. So it doesn't matter, like, what issue you have going on, whether it's thyroid or your gut. It's basically looking at everything that you need to support the foundations of health. So it's the same for absolutely anyone, and you need to get these areas right before you can even build on anything else. So we're looking at the gut, digestion, absorption, inflammation, how to support it. We're looking at the microbiome of the mouth, the gut, the gut brain axis, how to support that. We're looking at your adrenals. So we focus in on the adrenals and blood sugar, because all your other hormones do depend on that. And then we look at the nervous system again.
Sounds
So, like,
amazing.
they're so foundational. And this is what I use with my healing. This is what I use with my clients. So I've kind of put everything together in a
Yeah,
course. Yeah. So I'm
and
excited about that.
I guess that is because they are the foundations, aren't they? Whether you're trying to conceive, whether you are not trying to
Exactly.
conceive, whether you're perimenopausal, wherever you are in the kind of spectrum of life,
Yeah. You just
they
want to
are
age well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And so
So,
is that a self-paced course? Do you buy the course, or is it got lives with yourself? How does it work?
so right now, it's got lives. So I'm walking people through it. So there's a live every week. And then after that, it's going to be a self-paced course with some lives.
Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, thank you very, very much, because that has been super, super helpful. And I have learned loads myself. I'm going to go and investigate my thyroid further. And I'm going
Amazing.
to look at my blood sugar balance. So
Yay, amazing.
thank you so much for your time. I will put all your details in the show notes so people can
Thank
find out
you.
about working with you and find out about your course. But thank you so
Amazing.
much for
Thank you.
joining us today. That's really helpful.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun to talk to you. Thank you.
All right. I will see you on Instagram soon, I am sure.
Yay.
Thanks everybody for joining us. And if you enjoyed today and you would like to give us a rating, we would be so, so grateful. I've been told repeatedly I have to say this at the end of the podcast. So there we go. I'm saying it now. So we will see you next week. Thank you. If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.